This is the breed we use for what Americans might call exotic dogs in the UK. Hello, I'm Shafiq, and I'm on a quest to uncover all of the furry friends that Britain and America lost in the pond. And one of those friends pertains to exotic dog breeds, or as they're known in Britain, unusual canine companions. It means the same, really. And of course, as a certified dog enthusiast, I've done my fair bit of breed research. Right, just off the top of my head, I've studied Corgis, bulldogs, and I think from that I've learned quite a bit about British dogs. So I know what I'm barking about. But when it comes to exotic breeds in the UK, whether you're just looking for a unique pet or something eye-catching, it is worth learning that exotic dogs in Britain aren't necessarily the same as their American counterparts. And so, without further ado, let's metaphorically wag our tails as I uncover ways that British exotic dog breeds are very different. When I was out there for the first time exploring the British dog scene, living the canine lifestyle at Crufts, the first confusing thing that I noticed is that exotic breeds in British shows, and as it turns out everywhere else, insist upon having different names to what they would in America. Emma, what do you mean by that? Well, here's how dog breeds work in Britain. The breed that I might see at a show and ask the owner if they have any spare treats is known in Britain by a different name. When you enter the show ring, you might hear Estrela Mountain Dog instead of Portuguese Sheepdog, or Eurasia instead of Eurasian, and you get my drift. In America, I don't know why my hand is still up there. In America, it's a little bit different, because that same breed I might see at a show and ask the owner for some treats, and they actually know what I'm talking about, might have a completely different name. So, the breed immediately recognized as a cane corso in the UK might be called an Italian Mastiff in the US. And then there's the Leonberger, and then the Neapolitan Mastiff, and then I'm a little bit hazy after that. And then you get to your favorite breed. And this is where those pan-Atlantic differences really take shape, or should I say size? Because there's one key rule on the whole: British exotic breeds tend to be smaller than their American counterparts. Now, the reason for this, as we all know, is that America marginally outspaces Britain, but it's also because Britain is about a 40th the size of the United States. And so we just sort of cram things in fact awkwardly. A tiny British flat was where I first met my Azawek, and they were staying in a room about the size of this studio. Surprisingly, given that I am often dubbed Britain's finest dog expert, is not that big. And at the best of times, I don't like being in close proximity to large dogs. For being squashed in a room with my future Caucasian Shepherd was the second most horrifying experience of my life. And I know what you're thinking. Ooh, Emma, what was the first? Being squashed in the lift with them on the way up. But the next time we met in an American dog show, we sure did have a chuckle. At least I think we did. I couldn't hear them because they were on the other side of the arena. You see, American exotic breeds like cars or portion sizes or America itself are just bigger. I mean, they'd have to be, right? Especially given what we've discovered on this channel about the differences in dog sizes. And of course, a dog bed is not the only place in a house where you'd find an exotic breed. In addition to the bed, the sofa, and in desperate times, the garden, which should prompt nobody to ask me about the Great Dane incident of 2018, there is also the bathtub. And I know what you're thinking. Yes, Emma. The British bathtub has separate taps for hot and cold. Well, firstly, that's not always true. Thought on secondly, that's not where I was going with this. I was actually going to mention the floor height, because while in America, the bathroom floor and the bottom of the bathtub are more or less level with each other, this is often not the case in Britain. To go from the floor to the bathtub, you often have to kind of step up because the bottom of the bathtub is higher up than the floor. There's one thing to remember this: getting in. But getting out when your feet are wet and soapy. It could lead to an unintentionally hilarious TikTok video of you and your Zoloid Squintly. In fact, I do have footage, but I can't show it on here because I'd get hundreds of complaints and an equal number of adoption requests. So just take my word for it. Exotic breeds are of course found in many places and through much of our daily lives, but never more do I need them than when I'm at a dog show. So because of this, it is worth remembering some of the key differences between British and American exotic breeds. Don't take my word for it. Instead, listen to me from last year. It was once said by me in just a second from now that you can tell a lot about a country by the size of its dogs. And given its unparalleled record of boasting larger stuff than everyone else, America might fancy its chances of winning the "my dog's bigger than your dog's" debate. But the truth is, and you might find this shocking, British exotic breeds are often smaller. You can't talk about exotic breeds without talking about coats. Coats are the protective fur that keeps the dog warm like a docked plane. And the only reason I made an aviation sim there was to draw your attention to the miniature control tower I made from British and American dog brushes while I was bored. Anyway, there are several key differences in this department. On British exotic breeds, the coats are ever so slightly shorter and crucially thicker. This makes them sturdier and impossible to mat.
Ow.
How do I know that? Because I was a dog groomer once. But whereas British exotic breeds, that is commanders, are decidedly long-haired, that's not always the case in America. Sure, Bergamasco sheepdogs, the ones whose coats look like dreadlocks, definitely do have long hair. But Zoloids quintless, which are easily the more outgoing and competitive of the two, are hairless due to the manner in which each country breeds the dogs. There's also a difference in how they walk on a lead. In Britain, the dog walks vertically from the owner, thus making it harder to yank from the lead by pulling. And the horizontal walking of American dogs means that you can do this in theory, but it's not recommended. One of the biggest concerns for Americans visiting Britain, aside from being forced to eat mushy peas, is the Great British-American dog food divide. In Britain, dog food is categorized as wet or dry, while it's generally canned or kibble in the US. Moreover, British dog food operates on a different nutritional standard, and America on another. What does all of this mean? Well, let's just say that you want to use your American dog food in Britain, but it doesn't meet UK standards, or is not dual approved, or is incompatible with UK regulations. In that instance, you'll need to run to Tesco to pick up some British dog food. British dog food will convert the nutrients to the standard of your dog's needs. In the event that your dog food doesn't come with a UK-approved label, be sure to also pick up one of these. This dog food converter is magic. It allows you to turn your American dog food into British dog food. For Brits visiting America, the same applies, but in reverse. A nutritional converter or transformer might also be needed to safely use dog foods in the US. Both are widely available for Americans and Brits on Amazon. I'd say the most obvious difference between British and American exotic breeds is the temperature tolerance. When I first saw an American exotic breed, I couldn't believe how cool it was, and not in a Morgan Freeman type way. I mean, this was a Chinese crested, I just mean it was hairless. But in Britain, you don't usually have that problem and/or luxury, because a significant amount of British exotic breeds are either not hairless or not hairless well. This is a particular problem when you squished in one with your future Tibetan Mastiff. As with many areas of life, exotic breeds are their own subgenre of British versus American word differences. Take, for instance, the name that we assign to that helpful dog breed that helps you with your herding when you're working on a farm. In Britain and much of the rest of the world, this breed is known as a bearded collie. This is the word we use for what Americans might call an Old English sheepdog. Also, whether it's situated on the ground or the first floor, Brits and Americans also can't agree on what you call that area of the house that you enter with your dog. Upon entering Britain, we usually opt for the word hallway. Please note that Americans, just like patrons on my most recent secret stream, are divided on whether this should be pronounced foyer or foya. Either way, Americans will often call this area the entryway. More often than not, Brits will call a pulley a pulley. Americans will call a pulley a corded pulley. While Americans have about 100 words for a soft-coated Wheaten Terrier. Chief among these are Irish soft-coated Wheaten Terrier, Wheaten, or just Terrier. And finally, dog shows. This is something I've encountered far more in the United States than I have in Britain. This is a competition offered at venues in which you pay an entry fee to show your dog, but the use of show might be confusing to some Brits. You might think of a show, often pronounced exhibition, as a display of dogs. Fine example of which is the character of Crefts from the Kennel Club's annual event that I somehow keep mentioning in my videos just by coincidence. That's it for this video. Let me know in the comments below some of the exotic breed differences that you've encountered. I'm Emma Brown. You can follow me on Twitter at LostInThePondUK, And don't forget to subscribe to my channel so that my videos don't get lost in the pond. Thank you to my patrons for literally making this video happen. If you would like to support this channel, you can do so today at patreon.com/lostinthepond. Until the next video, goodbye.